We're live. Happy Friday to each and every one of you guys. This is Alita and Steve coming to you with some mind and body review of the basics of meditation. So, hey, Steve, what's going on with you?
Not much. Good day. Yeah, I got my shipment today from China here in upstate New York. So a
Mm,
bit of chaos, but it's nice finally. It's like 3 months it's take to get the shipment and whatnot, but we got it in and it's all good. So nothing
nice.
broken. What's really awesome, I was going to kind of really, the one thing I was concerned about were the bowls, my crystal singing bowls that I use for therapy sessions and
Mm-hmm.
healing, and they came intact. So
Oh, good.
that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, that is big. So, folks, as promised, we said we're going to come on and we're going to try this every Friday to bring you a little bit about every week a little bit, so we don't over inundate you about meditation. So today is the basics where we're going to talk about maybe some vocabulary, some postures, the importance of breath. We're going to talk about why do we even want to meditate? What's the purpose of it? How to come back to being present and so forth. And so we want to talk about just understanding that the basics of even how it applies to parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and what the inhale does and what the exhale does. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Steve start off and then I'm just going to interject every single second. If you see me duck over here, I might be drinking soup. I'm only kidding. Steve, hey, where do we start? Why do we meditate at all?
Why do we meditate at all?
Yeah.
It's the first thing that comes to mind. I was having a conversation with my stepfather some years
Mm,
back, and he's a lot of really interesting interactions with us and conversations, and he asks things in ways that others don't ask, or will come at you in a way that someone else may not come at you. 23-year Marine, just a tough. Pain is
mhm.
weakness leaving the body, that kind of
Yep.
thing. So we were talking about this idea of meditation, and his belief, of course, is that, like many people, it's all in the head, it's all in the mind. If you can't make it, it's in your head, just keep going. And
Mhm.
he asked me questions about meditation, what it was, and we're talking about it a bit. And that evening, after I wasn't like being all high and mighty on meditation. It was just like just a general question that he was asking, but it was about the answer that I gave him was like, it helps you to observe emotions. It helps you to be able to get out of that head so that you can see from a better vantage point what's going on within the mind, and you can respond more effectively, more skillfully.
Mhm.
So the evening comes, and they were coming to visit in Shanghai while Melissa and I were in Shanghai, and the internet was a problem for me for about 3 weeks. Right when I had just moved there, they had just come and visit, and I was having a problem with the internet and VPNs, and it's China, and it's just, we're used to Google working, and if Google doesn't work, we're in trouble. So in China, the Google doesn't exist, so I was having the challenges. And while I was getting frustrated watching and trying to set up Netflix so we could watch a show that I was excited for them to see, blah blah blah, I was 30 minutes in, and I say, "This is just a complete waste of my life." And just the irritation with internet, just like, why am I dealing with this in my life? It's just like a waste of my energy and everything.
Mm, mm.
So he goes, "So how's that meditation working out for you?" So, but the difference, we laughed at it. But what's interesting about that comment and that observation is that it doesn't mean that you don't get irritated. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that you don't get angry, or you don't become afraid, or you don't have bouts of depression or moments of anxiety, um, or feeling like all you need to do is withdraw yourself from everything in the world so you can shell and nest in your own space just to recharge it. It doesn't mean you're floating on a cloud. All it
Mhm.
means is that you're going to feel the emotion rise, and you just establish a bit of a different vantage point in relationship with the emotion, and
Mhm.
it doesn't become something that you are for a prolonged period of time. You often find yourselves in states of emotion, at least I would speak for myself in I would say my previous life before earlier in life. It seems like a previous life, honestly, but
Yeah.
you would just be in mind and in emotion and not realize that there is a space to be other than that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in the end, you're becoming aware of the fact that I can see these emotions happening, and I can do something in time that I can try to manage my response to those emotions a bit more effectively. So the point is that meditation is a state of being. It's a you are, and this is my perspective, at least my understanding of it. You are meditation, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is a better way of saying it. You are in a state of meditation, not sitting someplace on a chair or in a cushion or cross-legged, and then you're just getting up and then going about your day. You're trying to be in that state of awareness and separation from mind whenever you can be.
Yeah,
That ultimately is meditation.
I think Joe Dispenza says there's a difference between being and doing. And when you're being, you're being in a state of mindful observance of your actions, your thoughts, and
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
Uh,
So meditation is useful in bringing about a better, a more skillful, mindful state of mindfulness, I suppose. They're
yeah,
they're definitely linked together,
yeah.
And in the last week's talk, I mentioned that idea of the challenge that I have with the idea of the word mindfulness, and
Hmm.
continue to think about that all the time. I do. I don't necessarily go back and forth on it. It's just trying to understand it a bit deeper. Meditation is something that you establish, and then from that place you are observing.
So from my understanding, what they're saying is, you use mindfulness as a way to get you in one of the many ways of meditating, to get you into a meditative state. So, mindfulness and meditation are two different things, but mindfulness is a technique that we are developing, saying, let's do this and become aware. You have that Zen meditation where you are just observing, you're just being aware of everything that's around you. And so the mindful word that came up is new. That's all new. And so what they say is mindfulness is a way to get you to the gateway of meditation. One way. Because there's
Mm,
so many different ways. You can go run and your breath gets you into it, that fast breathing. They do pranic yoga. They do all these kundalini yoga. And they do all these different kind of stuff that focus on different types of breath that gets you into that space of awareness. And I think that, for me,
mm.
in my opinion, meditation is that space of awareness of just being.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, we all know that also research is showing that meditation has many benefits, the relaxation part, the ability to lower your blood pressure. What else? What are you thinking? Blood pressure,
Uh,
relaxation.
yeah. I mean, neural processing, stillness. One interesting thing that I've been looking at the last few weeks is the default mode network, which is
Mm,
an interesting for me. It's an interesting examination. It's important as part of the discussion.
yeah.
Um, if you were to look at, say, if this is the brain itself, ooh, there's the brain, yeah,
Yeah.
two hemispheres of the brain, and if you open up into the back, it's right, it's all mirrored and backward in the. This is funny. So in the back part of the brain, like up in this area,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the prefrontal lobe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that would be up here. This is really failing miserably, but uh, it's up inside the back part of the skull, like
So
up in this
actually,
area.
if you do it this way,
Okay,
yeah,
all right. We'll open the brain up.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
this
so,
part.
yeah, so the
Yeah,
median
yeah,
part.
yeah. Thank you. But it essentially that's the part of the brain that they believe is responsible for a state of consciousness.
Hmm.
It's
Wow.
just for a second, think of, like, right, it's the state of consciousness. And when I say the state of consciousness, ultimately what I think, what I'm saying, if I don't misinterpret what the research and the conversations is that it's our default mode. It's our default mode. So if you're in a state of like, I see the state of consciousness, but it's like where you are as a mind, if you will. What state is the mind in? Is it and it has to do with the interpretation and the relationship of you as an individual with the external world.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamics of that relationship is determined, or the state of that how do I say this? The state of that relationship is in part determined by the default mode network, which is the state of consciousness of is the state of the mind. Let me just emphasize that just for a second. So what I'm saying is the mind itself is the navigator of everything that's happening. Right. The mind is the process of the navigation. All right. So if that mind is in a state of irritability and egocentrism and a sense of separation from everything else that's around and maniacal and a megalomaniac kind of, right? Like that's all within the default mode. That's not all, but it's the functioning of the default mode network. With meditators, they're finding that the default mode network operates differently, where that it's not just an I and the world relationship. The default mode network shifts in a sense that realizes I and the world are in some way inseparable and either in sync or not in sync. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a complete I world mentality where all I see are my problems. Within the mind, there's this process of these psychological processes that result in depression, that result in anxiety disorders, that result in et cetera, et cetera. We call it depression, we call it anxiety, or we call it whatever we may call it, right? But what's happening in the default mode network is part of that state. And we call it depression, but that's the process of the default mode network. So in the meditation of meditators, the default mode network operates fundamentally differently, which creates a whole completely different state of conscious reality.
Right. Now, it does make sense. And it also brings to mind the phrase homeostasis. We naturally need to be in a state of relaxation and peace and trust. And that's where we normally are supposed to be in. But because we get work, if we have kids, we have personal stuff, we have conflict coming at us, we have traffic, we have the rooster next door. We our brain is processing so much that we sometimes, because of the interaction with relationships, whether it be the one that's right in front of you, where you have someone that you live with, or whether it be a co-worker, or whether it be something else that's going to the store. But all that interaction affects your stress response based on your history, your personal history of how you were brought up, and what, if you were ever even in an adverse childhood experience, would that trigger, cause something to trigger you. So our homeostasis mind says we're supposed to be here, and we're supposed to just relax and be able to process things as it comes through without automatically reacting. I don't know if it's the same, but I think it's a little bit different. But that's what came up in my head when you were talking. And it's funny because the act of being present is one of the biggest thing about meditation, right? The act of being present. The act of being present means that you're not thinking about the next statement to make while you're listening. But for a second there, I slipped out of the act of being present and came up with that homeostasis phrase and went off on a tangent, probably.
No. Well, you're talking to a tangential maniac. I'm constantly getting stuck in those tangents. But I think what you're talking about is interesting. And if we can, let's stick a pin in that and chew that for a second. Yeah. The idea of being here, listening, and then being aware of the idea that's coming through the mind with logic and reason and whatever, for the purpose of having a dialogue and conversation, taking something, hearing what someone is saying, and become aware of something that contributes to it and adds to the dialogue, and that's a conversation. That's dialogue. It's not as if you're contributing. You're in that case, you're not just waiting to say something, and then that just takes us in a left field. It's, you're good. Yeah. But with that homeostasis, that idea of the homeostasis is, in some extent, part of that default mode network, but it's actually more like a limbic system, which is hippocampus, amygdala, prefrontal lobe, other parts of the brain as well. But the hormone processing within the body, in terms of meditation, what's going on with meditators with the hippocampus, with the amygdala. The amygdala is the emotion center, and in dopamine levels, and with all the chemicals that are being pumped through the body within the amygdala. That amygdala is also processing information through perception, right? And that is also a programmed response to a large extent. We can, through practice with meditation, develop the prefrontal lobe, which they call the regulator of the limbic system. But I'm sure the default mode network is responsible. Part of it, it's all complicated. We're having these cursory. We're having cursory just discussions about this. It's very surface level, but within the meditators, within the brain of the meditator, the amygdala and the hippocampus are going to process differently. Frontal lobes. This is just scientifically proven. These are just facts at this point. Yeah. So you're not going to have the emotional response that you may have a month ago if you do practice if you do have a regular meditation practice. That's essential.
And we're going to stick to meditation, the basics of meditation, because we are kind of geeking it, I think. But one of the things that I really love about Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says this really well. Nerve cells that fires together, fires together. And so when we start practicing meditation, our brain is a muscle. And so when we start practicing enough times, the muscle in our brain will start processing and creating new behavior. So when people start saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that is not true, because science is now showing that when you practice a thought, an emotion, and a reaction to something, you can rewire a nerve to a new pathway. And so that when we talk about meditation, and this is what the next question is, what is the purpose of meditation? Well, for me, one of those purposes of meditation is to make sure that I'm not automatically having a body, living in a body experience. I'm living in a spiritual experience where I'm aware of the different thoughts and emotions that are coming at me, and I'm not automatically responding to it, because that is one of my purpose of meditating. What about you, Steve?
Well, I think I agree with you, but from my own experience, like I said, it's not as if we don't get caught in emotional states, or that there isn't some sort of habitual thought process that just kicks forward and you're just responding. I actually was going through the Carl Jung autobiography today, and it was interesting in the conversation that he was having, and I don't want to get down this rabbit hole, but it somewhat goes into what we were saying before about these automatic responses, programming, childhood experiences, neural processes that just seem to happen. But he was talking about this idea that something appears to come from the unconscious mind, and he felt it as if it would actually inhabit him in a sense. So he would come into a sense of being possessed by a certain anima or an energy or like a state. And right, and this is when he said it, it made sense to me, because when you get into those moods, I can do it. Just go into a dark space. I'm just and I'm not in a place for people to talk to. That seems beyond my power. From my experience, it seems to happen. What I do have power over is how I respond to the mind that's happening meanwhile.
Right.
So if I'm tired, I've gotten better at realizing that when I'm tired and I haven't eaten or just whatever, I know when I'm in a state where I can't trust the mind.
Yeah.
And I'll say out loud to myself, you can't trust the mind right now. That insight is, you can't measure the significance of having an insight like that personally. I can't trust my mind right now. And then with that, I've now come under it. I'm not it, because I see it as an entity. And that, I think, for me, that's where meditation has paid off dividends, because now the best I can come under it. Going back to what we were saying before about with my stepfather, like how's the meditation helping? That would have gotten me in a death loop for 24 hours in the past, or definitely while I was in bed. I would have been stuck in the story of the internet and blah 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 blah. I saw the story happening, but I wasn't completely possessed by it.
Right.
That's where the key is for me.
And another point you're making right there is when you build that muscle in meditation, you're able to make a choice. You consciously are making a choice versus unconsciously automatically allowing it to happen, because life just allows you to breathe. You don't consciously focus on breathing, right? But
Nope.
sometimes our actions and our reactions are so automatic because we're so used to doing it all our lives. And you make a choice though whether or not you want that to be your best self. And so like for me, anger was not my best self. It no longer serves me. So I had to figure out how to do it. So I went through meditation, rewiring my going through scenarios in my head and saying that doesn't serve me. No. And when I became observant of that behavior, I consciously said no. But over time, that muscle kept on saying, building to the point where I don't have to consciously say no anymore. So when you meditate, it allows you to have that conscious action, that empowerment to say no to a behavior or a thought that no longer serves you.
I think what's an interesting thing to point out now as well is that these are all secondary.
Yeah.
Right? Not opposed to, but in addition to the state that you can feel when you are in the state of meditation. What's interesting though also is that I wish I could remember who wrote this, but they said might have been Swami Rama from the Himalayas. He said that there is not a meditator that hasn't tried to meditate and at some point hasn't wanted to jump out the window in the midst of meditation. Because it's like you confront it dead on. You're right in the face of the mind. And it's not as if you just close your eyes. Like everyone who's tried knows, you don't got to close your eyes and it's just going to happen. It's right. But then we end up in this cycle of I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Maybe I should be feeling this, or maybe I should be feeling this now, et cetera, et cetera. But just the work of coming into a state of stillness in breath becomes, I guess, maybe the primary motivator.
I totally agree. The primary motivator of meditation is to become present. So how do we get there? What do we do to get to being present? There's so many different ways.
I think the neatest trick is to think about the fact that it happens now and only now.
Now and only now. So
now and only now.
What are some ways, Steve, that you become present?
Breath. The breath is the one. I said this before, but it's like when I'm trying to become present, when I crave presence, or let me clarify. Maybe it should be better put this way: when I crave getting the fuck out of the mind, just straight talk, right? Like I got to get out of this nonsensical storm of chaos. Blah.
Yeah.
The breath is the first thing that happens. It's not even as if I'm not even trying to do it, right? It's just the first thing that takes is a deep breath. And then I take that deep breath, and then it seems to me that with that breath, I can then connect with the body. But this is something, again, just with practice and time.
Yeah.
But the breath it seems to be the default switch that happens.
I experienced that today. I was telling you that I did my first horseback riding lesson since my surgery, and the instructor was like, Aletha, each time the horse, each time you go down in the incantation of the trot, you exhale and relax, exhale, relax, and I really had to become aware of. Because as the more I relaxed and let go, the more the horse would be in sync with me and not getting mixed signal. And so
Mm.
that breath and just being aware of the breath, even as you're talking and I'm listening, I am so aware of my breath. And that brings me to being present. But there are other ways to become present. There's when I was waiting, when I finished my homework, I still felt my head was like this, still spinning and thinking too much.
Sure.
I set a timer and I did 10 minutes of Om, just Om,
Nice.
and
Mhm.
focusing on that. So chanting and mantras are other ways of trying to become present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The vibration of the Om is nice.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful. Um, I think though also part of part of the trick of becoming present is knowing what presence is.
Mm.
And it was at one point I had an insight that I was I was doing something. I was in a daydream. I went in, I was, whatever it was. I was. It doesn't even matter. But I went into a daydream state,
Mm-hmm.
and then I came back from the daydream, and then it was like, oh, that okay, and then I chewed on that for like months, honestly, to think about. Okay, that's what that means. Then, like when
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting there and everything goes fuzzy and hazy, that's mind.
Mm.
That's mind,
Mm.
and you go into it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're in that zombified state, however much of our waking, it's got to be 90% of our waking day
Mm-hmm.
is a state of mind,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
right?
that's
So
so true.
presence, what that is that when you're in that daydream state, and then when you come back from it and you're seeing clearly, when you
Mm-hmm.
can look at something 100%, then that's presence. When you hear something 100%, that's presence. And when you feel something 100%, that's presence. When you taste something 100%, that's present. When you smell
Mm-hmm.
something, when you close your eyes and boom, that's presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you can use the senses to find
Mm-hmm.
presence is nice. It's a really, really powerful tool. But the
That's so
interesting thing
true.
is with meditation, they say it is actually the state of meditation is beyond senses.
Sorry guys, the sun is setting. There we go. Can you see me better now?
Actually, less actually.
Oh no.
just touch a little bit. Just a little bit.
Okay, hold
That's
on.
cool.
There we go. Oh,
A little better.
I know what to do. There we go. The lights. The lights.
Ah,
The
there you
lights,
are. Yeah, yeah.
everyone.
So with meditation, you're looking to go beyond the senses
Right.
to where there is sound that is happening around you, which will continue to happen whenever you're meditating. There's going to be probably some sound around. The sounds happen around you, but you're not in that state. You're not becoming aware of the sounds. You can
Mm-hmm.
use sounds to find presence, but a meditative state is beyond the response of the sensation.
Sometimes that's hard because you have so much
Yeah.
going on. My friend, my friend Darlene. She's I think she's in her 70s. I didn't ask her beautiful age, but she was just commenting on just she just feels like monkey brain. And so one of the things that meditation helps you with is what is your starting point when you're meditating? Where are you? Is monkey voice going on? Or are you having monkey brain? Or
Mm.
so when you meditate, each time you meditate, you find this baseline as to where you are. And that's where you start from so that you know, but you also start with an intention of arriving to another point. So you when you sit down to say you're meditating, your intention has to be clear. I intend to put myself in a state of what? Awareness for me of
Mm.
awareness of just everything around me, just being observant of everything inside of me and outside of me at the same time.
Yeah, the phrase that came to my mind was inner stillness.
Mm,
Just different words, like we said last week. Words are pointers.
yeah.
Um, um, Yeah, for me, it's about finding the stillness, I
Yeah.
guess. But other times, it's just about whatever it might be about, just presence or just letting go or just stopping, slowing down.
Yeah.
That's all.
Um, we're coming to the half an hour point because when we're going to switch over to some practicums or ways to get into meditation. But Steve, I really want to see if we can talk about a little bit about for 5 minutes about when we meditate, how it affects our energy centers, our chakras, and how for me when I meditate, it balances me, it energizes me, it removes negative energy, it reduces my stress, um and some other, and my aches and pain. That was what one of the things I did. I would not get out of bed because when I before my hip replacement, you remember, I was in so
Mm,
much pain. I would send you a text and say, hey, meditate and send me some Reiki or something, help me, because
done.
the pain, and that's what you used to say, done. And so when I asked for help and prayer and from my soul family, I would ask for help to just send me some energy so that my mind wouldn't be focused on that pain. And
Mm,
so the when you balance that energy center, that pain level actually reduces, and I was able to get out of bed in less pain than what I would wake up with. So let me just talk real quick about it. So we have 7 common energy centers, and we have more than that, but the 7 that we know about, which we talk about from our pelvic bone energy center number 1, and we talk about how it's affiliated with the color red, and it affects our survival. That's our survival. Do we feel safe? Are we okay? But that is also, it is connected to our feet. So if we don't feel like we're safe, we're gonna run. And so if that is not balanced and that energy is not balanced in that area through breath and becoming aware of opening and balancing it and calming down the sympathetic stuff that's going through that area, what happens is what happened to me. To tell you the truth, my hips had to be replaced because I was living in this fear, fight, fright state for so long that
mm,
my those the adrenaline that's set in those muscles and that memory code, that muscle, literally just lost. I lost the energy and the balance, and so it had to be rebalanced through meditation and through the replacement of my hip. And
mm,
that's just one. We won't go into all the other stuff, but each energy center, like energy center number 2, talks about pleasure and your health care and am I well? Am I being okay? Am I happy? That is 2. Then you go to 3, right above your navel. That also talks about am I like happy? Am I well? Am I in pain? Am I where are my aches? And then you go up to your heart and you're like, you talk about your well-being. If your heart's saying you're not into this, I'm not into this right now, your well-being gets affected. You go up to your throat and you're not speaking your truth or setting boundaries, that area gets stirred up, and your thyroid and everything gets stirred up. Then you go up to your third eye. Your third eye is blocked. Most people's third eyes are blocked because they avoid the true feelings that they're feeling in their heart because they're too much up here. And so when they're up here, their brain gets so tired that they're feeling tired a lot. They're feeling exhausted. They're feeling frustrated. And so when we talk about meditation, we're trying to balance all that as well and being focused on the intention of coming to a state of wellness and being.
mm, mm. I find that with the default state of human condition
Yeah.
being in mind, essentially, that is that's a it's like I said last time, where it's this interdynamic process where it feeds the cognitive state or the state of the whole being, but then we take a conscious decision that then can also impact the state of the whole system as well. And back to the point that you made at the beginning of the conversation around homeostasis, by getting out of the mind, we're getting out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And if we bring ourselves into a certain state of centeredness, then it is like you're taking the foot off the gas pedal.
Right.
You're still going to have momentum of the vehicle.
Right.
But by using a mantra, by using breath, by using some sort of meditative practice, you can pump the brakes, and then the car will eventually come to a stop.
Okay.
In this analogy, I guess you could say that the car coming to a stop, quote unquote, would be the body and the systems. However we look at the systems, however we want to define different things, nonetheless, then it allows it to enter a state of the homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All the parasympathetic systems, the sympathetic systems, are balanced out because we're out of the way. We take our foot off the gas pedal, and then you get up and then you go a little bit more balanced. However that manifests.
All right. So do you think we're okay with switching over to talking about the basics of positions and breathing and feet, about how we start to meditate?
Yeah.
Let's
Good.
do it.
Yeah.
So how do we start?
Well, the first thing that came to mind, like you said before, was start with intention. Start with the intention. What are you seeking to find? There's a difference between intention and expectation. Expectations are going to get a little muddy. Like I expect to feel this way after 5 minutes.
Yeah. My sister.
Not a good idea.
My sister gets so frustrated. She's like, I can't see. So when we talk about meditation, everybody think that you have to see something. You have to go travel somewhere. But you don't have to travel. You can just remain present in the present moment of what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you're seeing. Well, not seeing. Zen meditation from Japan have your eyes open and you're just staring off in a distance. So what you're seeing, it applies to that type of meditation. So there's so many different types of meditations, and so Steve,
many.
Which one would you like to talk about to finish up here? You said you had.
Well, there's the breathing. There's the breath meditation, which we touched on last week. But I find that to be very, very powerful and very useful. What we can do is we can do a combination of two. We can do the body awareness and with the breath awareness. Or why don't we do this? Why don't we play with some color? That can be fun.
All right.
Color, there's these different practices. Each one, what we're trying to do ultimately is we're trying to become, we're trying to enter, what's the word I want? We're trying to trick the mind. Not right. We're moving awareness. I'm sorry. I'm playing with words after a very, very long day. We're trying to divert awareness from mind to something else.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking it deliberately. No different than maybe reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you read the book, you go into the story in the head, you're in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You see the movie in the head, and you see the characters walking or whatever it is that they're doing, right? And then as you're going through that, or just like maybe watching a movie, you feel the emotional state, or I cry in movies and shows all the time. If there's any sentiment, I'm crying. I'm done. I'm finished. I cry. And I look over at my wife and she's like nothing. She's just staring at me. I don't understand how you're not crying. Anyway, but I'm not in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not me going through the experience in the movie, but I am transported into the emotional state of the character. It's got me, right? Similarly with the meditation, when we move and we visualize into a different state or put ourselves in a certain visualization, process of visualization, we also will feel differently. It goes back to what we were saying before, but so what we're doing with a visualization is we're taking the awareness and we're trying to have it focus on something deliberate and intentional. So otherwise it's just going to get sucked back up into the mind, and there you are, back in the mind and just thinking again. Okay, so we start with the intention. The intention is to bring about a particular state, whatever that state is. Okay, for me, it's quiet, stillness, peace, whatever. Words are just pointers, right?
For me, it's stillness. I want stillness.
Stillness. Okay. Yeah. So then what we need to do is not expect a particular outcome by the time that we're done, because You could say, okay, I expect to be completely quiet, sucked in a void, and the entire world goes away, and I come back 3 hours later and I felt like it was 5 minutes. That's not what we're expecting, right? So we maintain our expectations. We keep our expectations completely out of the conversation. We have an intention to feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that we do is we surrender.
Okay.
We surrender to the experience. We surrender to the breath. We let go of trying to control what is about to occur.
Okay.
All we're doing is moving awareness, and then the experience that comes forward is the experience that comes forward. If you cannot surrender, it means that you have an expectation.
Okay. Huh.
You must surrender. If you're not surrendering, it means that you're trying to control. Sorry?
I'm writing it down in the comments. Start with an intention.
Intention for a desired feeling, a desired state.
Okay.
Okay. Then you surrender to the experience, to whatever comes forward. Surrender to the guidance. Surrender to the feeling. Surrender to the breathing. Surrender to the space. Surrender to the void. Surrender to whatever, right? Surrender to the feeling of the body. Let go. And then when you let go, you go into that state much more easily rather than trying to control the outcome. To control the outcome implies there's a psychological process that is trying to control what is currently happening so that I come to a desired result. You cannot achieve meditation by trying to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
It's an oxymoron. You do not meditate by intending or trying, or I should say trying to meditate. You meditate by surrendering. Mm-hmm. By letting go, right? Okay.
That's two.
So, that's two. All right. So we got the intention, we've got the surrender, and then we have the practice. I guess I don't know. I'm just throwing this together, but I was like, I'm just coming up with words. But this is just where I guess then you get into the practice itself, right?
But let's also talk about body position, because that's also important. Like for me, I cannot lay down and meditate. I'm going to sleep because I don't sleep. Yeah. I don't sleep. And so when I eventually slow down and I start becoming aware of the breath, and the breath starts getting really laboriously slow, I'm gone. See you later. Sure. So I was so embarrassed in class when, we go to the regional conferences and we're doing these meditations, and all of a sudden you hear
there's Letha over there. Letha's snoring again.
And it was so embarrassing because the professor they're continuing to teach, but all of a sudden when I wake up and they're like, give me that little small look, they're like
yeah.
So for me,
well, what's interesting? All right, so here's the deal. Here, let's bring that back to the practice itself. Mm-hmm. If the individual is not able to surrender to the fact that some lady is snoring in the room, then you can't meditate, right? You have the intention, I want to feel this way, but now I can't now because that person's in the way over there, or there's always something. Like I said, meditation, if it's not now, it's never. Yeah. It's not now, it's never. And everything that comes forward is something that you can use as a vantage point as a meditation. One of the reasons I love cold showers is because when I get into the cold shower, the first thing that hits me is the mind saying, holy shit, this is cold, right? But it's a perfect opportunity for me to come under the response to the cold. And as I come under the response, you're distracting everybody. As you come under the response to the cold, there is a space that exists there.
Yeah.
The cold is no different than the mind during the meditative state, because the mind is actually making the cold what it actually literally is, according to the body.
Not this Jamaican.
So, it's a practice. So just like it's cold, just like it's snoring, just like it's a lawnmower in the neighbor's yard at whatever time when I'm trying to meditate, they're mowing the lawn, I can't, or the dog's barking, or the traffic's too loud. It's all a practice. It's all
that is true. I agree. I know I'm being funny, but he tried to get me to do the cold stuff. No, not this Jamaican. But he's you're right. You're right. It is just a distraction of the mind, and once you get underneath it, then you're there. And so letting go of the expectation that it's going to be quiet and peaceful and non-moving, let
It's
go of it.
irrelevant.
Yeah,
It's irrelevant at that point. But
yeah,
like I said at the start, it takes the ideas, like it's actually a bit of a philosophical venture when we're getting into this,
yeah,
right? Like when you ask me the question, like how do you begin to meditate or something like that,
yeah,
and I don't mean to be coy with this, but it is literally now. If
yeah.
you want to be somebody, if you want to be somebody that in the future is a
Mhm.
meditator that can enjoy space and stillness and can overcome whatever it is that you need to overcome. That only happens if you do it now,
Yeah. My
right?
father was like a really good guy about that. He was just a quiet man, and his entire family is like that. But they had this distinct skill of just being present, just being present. They would, he would sit and listen to the radio, the old
Mm,
stereo, back in the days, and then he's outside in the veranda listening to the birds at the same time, just being completely in that space. And I used to say that my father is at church because he's in this
mm,
space of just joy and spiritual connection with everything you
yep,
know and that's
100%.
that's another intention, just to be in that space of complete spiritual connection to my mind, my body, and my soul, of just observing what's going
Yeah,
on.
that's right. So to bring us to the question about the posture, the thing that comes up in my mind now is the idea of not getting too hung up on details.
Okay.
This is a common mistake with a lot of new meditators. They think that if I'm not sitting in a particular way, I'm not going to have a positive experience. Or if I lose count, or if I'm supposed to be counting to 15 and all of a sudden I'm at whatever and I lose count and oh, now it's all just a waste. No, it's not a waste. Just start over again. Whatever. Just chill.
Yeah.
Start over, you know, because if it isn't now, it's not ever, right? So it's just about trying to practice the reprogramming of the mind and what's going on inside the mind and your relationship with it, right? the
Hmm.
Everybody has ambition, everybody has goals, everybody wants to be a better version of themselves, everybody is frustrated if they're not living up to their own inner knowing of who they should be and who they could be. That's a very, very common human experience, right? So we're going to sit down in the process of meditation and it's not going to go your way. And then you're going to get caught up in the frustrations. Observe the fact that the frustration is happening. Appreciate that it's a normal process of the mind, just the way the mind works. And then come under the fact that it's happening and just observe the fact that it's arising and smile at it. Oh, look at the mind is frustrated that it didn't go Steve's way. Poor Steve. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Laugh at it. Let it go.
I love the way
I
you
don't know.
say come under the mind. It's almost like when you're singing, when you try to hit the next note, they instruct you to see yourself coming under it and pushing it up to get to that
Hmm.
next note. As a soprano, that's what I used to um, learn. So it's the same thing with the mind. When you see the thoughts are coming, to get to the next level of just allowing it to go by without reacting, go under it and just allow it to go. Because
Yeah.
if you're
So
in the middle, you're blocking it, right?
yeah, yeah. So as we're setting this up, and as we're thinking about the posture, it's a nice practice. It's on one half, it's nice to set the routine because routine can be very powerful of having a certain position. I often I unconsciously do it at this point, but I join the fingers, the thumb and the forefinger. That's just
Okay.
the tradition that I was taught in, and I will find myself sitting with my hand on my lap with the two fingers. Sometimes I actually will join
Mhm.
them this way, and I bring
Okay.
my hands together, right? So it's I join the thumb and forefinger. I put them and loop them, and I just close my hands and I keep them joined
Right.
here, and I just put them in the center of my lap, and I sit that way. Like some people feel like this is what they want to do when they want the hand. Like it's not me. It's just
Yeah.
not me. I'm more discreet, personally, and I could do it in the subway, in the metro. I got my thumb and four fingers joined, or they're on my lap, and no one would notice anyway. Um, so that's a trigger for me that I go back to, right? But if I lose my index fingers in an accident. Am I never going to be able to meditate again because I can't do this? And now it's never going to work. No, of course not. It's just what you do, right? Mantra meditations for me, it's different mantras will come at different times and I'll listen to them. But I do have my go-to mantra that I've been using for the past 13, 14 years. That's the one constant. And it's a beautiful thing to have that constant, so you'll attach yourself to certain practices because they resonate with you. And then sometime later you realize I don't even do that anymore. I've actually changed into this experience. My evolution with meditation through my life has been a really interesting journey in learning and exploring all sorts of different practices, from japa meditation and walking meditations, right? Meditation in action, walking and just seeing trees and listening to the birds as your father used to. That in itself is a meditation as well.
So we talk about breath, we talk about posture, but what about the lips and the tongue? Is there a particular recommendation where we put our lips when we're breathing?
I've heard it said that some people would suggest the tongue up the roof of the mouth behind the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, apparently that has something to do with salivation, and it helps the salivation go down the throat more fluidly, so you don't have to swallow as much. But even if you swallow, if you find yourself in a position with for me, the lips barely touching,
mm-hmm.
and you can feel actually, let's do it now. You can actually, we can actually work ourselves through a bit of a process because we're going to run short on time. But if you have the lips barely touching right now, and you can feel the lips relax,
mm-hmm.
and then move through the chin and then the jaw muscles. The jaw muscles are relaxed. Teeth are barely touching.
Mm-hmm.
You want to close your eyes?
Okay.
Go for it. We'll get ourselves in a posture. Eyes are gently closed, and you can feel the muscles around the eyes relax. The muscles around the ears relaxed, and through the scalp relaxed. If you bring your attention back to those points, gently back to the lips, you might actually feel them relax even more. It's letting go. It's surrendering to the feeling of the lips. You're not going to feel the lips or the cheeks or the jaw or the scalp or the ears in the mind. It doesn't require thinking. It doesn't require an interpretation. It requires an intention and then the surrender to the feeling. You can bring your awareness to the bridge between the nostrils and watch the cool, dry breath going in the nose and the warm, moist air going out the nose. Just feel it. Surrender to the movement. Surrender to the feeling of the nose and the breath. The coolness in and out. You'll notice that the mind comes in, and the mind takes your attention, as we say. Just be aware when that happens the best you can and bring it back to the last point. Let the head, neck, and trunk be straight. Elongate the spine a little bit. Feel in the center of the skull as if there's something with a string connected to the center of the skull, the very top. And then feel it pick up just a little bit and elongate the neck and the back. Just a millimeter or two, not much. And move through the shoulders and down the arms to the hands. What was the intention that you wish to feel? And feel that through the arms and to the hands. Move the awareness down to the chest and the belly. What's the intention? And just surrender to that feeling coming. Move into the hips and the thighs and down the knees, the calves and the ankles and the toes. What's the intention? Surrender. You're not making it happen. You're not trying. Just open, as if you're opening your hands. Surrender. And as you surrender, the feeling comes forward. Come into the center of the chest. Watch the breath come in, bringing a color. As the breath comes in with the color that brings the feeling of your intention into the center of the chest. And the exhalation is the color of what you're trying to release. What currently doesn't serve you. Breath in and breath out. It just happens. There's no doing. There's just awareness. It happens. Breathing happens. The body happens. The mind happens. The emotions happen. Deep in the center of the chest. Become aware of the phrase of the intention. What was desired. And hear the word. Hear the word come from stillness and return to stillness. This form of meditation is the mantra meditation. The word has a quality, a vibration. It has a power. Now slow the word down as it comes from stillness and returns to stillness. Return the phrase. Words or phrases, whatever it is, just feel it and observe it move. And slow it down and become aware of each and every syllable. Focus on the word. Slow it down even more and just listen. You are not the speaker. You're the observer. Observe the space around the word. Now disregard the word and come back to the center of the chest. Include the legs and the belly. Include the arms and the hands. the throat, the neck, the face, and the head. Beware of the breath. The cool, dry air in the nose. Become aware of the sounds of the room, the position of the body. You can take 3 full breaths, nice and fulfilling. And on the third exhalation, you'll gently open your eyes, but not before. Each time we're becoming more aware of the external world. And with the eyes gently open, before you move, if you gently gaze down, you could become aware of the body. You're aware of the breath. You're aware of the voice, the word, and then the external world. Acknowledge the external world and the internal world. Back to the center of the chest. And hold that and lovingly go about your day.
That was beautiful. We hit the 1 hour mark right there. That's beautiful. Um, I experienced electricity going through the word. My word showed up as relax, and I just saw the color that I picked for inhaling to bring into my body was fuchsia, and the color to exhale was teal. But they all intertwine into the inside of the word. And as I started slowing it down, all of a sudden my body just had this big chill. And I noticed
Mm.
my body temperature increased.
Common. Yeah. Well, oftentimes when I'm doing guided meditations for others, I find I actually sweat a lot. The body
Mm.
temperature goes up, and my shirt it just gets damp. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I don't know what it is. I don't know why it happens, um,
Yeah.
but anyway, just briefly. So what we did, and so someone can do this themselves. You start with physiological sensations, and then you work your way through step by step to the breath, move into the interrealm, into the inner world with the voice and the sound of the word, whatever it is, in the mantra meditation that we just did. And then I brought you back just directly opposite. Then went from there back to the chest, back to the body, including the points that we touched on, so we could feel those. Back to the breathing into the nostrils, back to the posture, and back to the external world. We're a citizen of 2 worlds. And from my experience, if I'm playing a lot in the inner world, and if I just jar myself out and just get up and go, I can find sometimes a sense of disorientation and lack of power and control. So if I can go in and then back out systematically, and then when I open my eyes again, I don't go out right away. I stay connected with the inner space when my eyes open. I
Mm-hmm.
stay connected with the body while the eyes are open. And then I'm able to better implement it and integrate it into my day to maintain that state the best that I can with where I'm at on that day.
This was beautiful. If you guys haven't noticed, but we want to conclude with just saying a few things about learning these different types of meditation will not only empower you and give you confidence and give you a sense of well-being, it also will improve. You will start noticing some improvement in your own health, your self-esteem, your sleep, your concentration, and your recovery. I used a positive guided meditation to incorporate the new hip. So, in trying to make sure that I was recovering fast enough, guided meditation is noted in research to be beneficial when you're recovering from an illness. And so, there's so many benefits to meditating. And so, next week, Steve is we're going to go. This is the basics, so we kind of went really hard on you today. But next week we're going to just go right into we're going to talk and say hey, but we're going to go right into doing another meditation and possibly talk about the benefits of that type of meditation. How say you, Steve?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds
Well,
good. Yeah.
well, guys, you have a beautiful, beautiful Friday, rest of your Friday, and have a great weekend. And thank you so much for joining us.
Peace and blessings.
Bye.